Hello and welcome to another edition of From the Desk of. I'm Jim Cohen, the CEO of Minneapolis Jewish Federation, and I'm very pleased to welcome Melissa Weiner and David Krco, who are the co-chairs of the Twin Cities Cardozo Society. Thank you so much for being here today. I think the first thing I should ask is for all of our listeners who aren't familiar with it, what is the Cardozo Society? If you could just describe it for me, David, in a couple of sentences.
So, at its most simple, basic level, the Cardozo Society is an affinity group for Jewish attorneys that's part of the Minneapolis and St. Paul Jewish Federations. That's a bi-cities organization. It's been around for a number of years and is active doing all kinds of efforts, programming, things in the community.
And in the interest of full disclosure to our listeners, we have one of the highlights of the year coming up, which is the Cardozo Society annual dinner, which a lot of work has gone into, and thank you both for everything you've done to make that happen. It really is the preeminent legal dinner of the year throughout the community, not just the Jewish community. I'm very curious to hear how Cardozo has evolved over the past couple of years, making it much more relevant to first century attorneys like yourselves, and why you got involved with it and why you're still excited to be a part of it. So, Melissa, how has it changed for the positive?
I think we've been extremely intentional in being what we are, which is a organization of Jewish lawyers who have a purpose in bringing together Jewish lawyers and broader community members. Now we have many projects and we have committees of lawyers who are working on more than just CLEs and programming. We, of course, have our annual dinner, which continues to draw more and more folks than it has in years past. I think we have something like 450 people, Jewish lawyers, community members, elected officials, all sorts of important folks are coming to this dinner, which means a lot to the Jewish community and it means a lot to the Cardozo Society. We also have really awesome CLE events that have drawn lawyers and also non-lawyers. The last year, we hosted an anti-Semitism on college campus program where we had national speakers from Hillel, from Stand With Us, and from the Brandeis Center. We held a panel where they talked about the increase in anti-Semitism on college campuses and also illegal efforts that have been brought against these universities, both in the Title VI administrative actions and also in court. It was incredibly well attended. I think we had well over 100 people who came by Zoom. And we also had an event where we brought Gadi Ezra from Israel. He was the former director of the Office of National Diplomacy to the Prime Minister. And Gadi came and spoke about all the legal challenges that Israel's facing in this time of war. We've always had programs. We have had high-level speakers in years past, but now we are very committed and organized to doing that multiple times a year and making sure that we are speaking to the needs of our community members in the programs that we're offering. But that is just the tip of what we're doing, which is how has Cardozo evolved?
That's terrific. When people look at the lineup at this year's dinner and they see the numbers of people that are coming and the numbers of younger attorneys who are participating at every level, I think it speaks so well to what you're talking about being more intentional, about being more relevant. Nothing makes me happier from my seat to see that Cardozo is really meeting the needs of folks and also addressing important issues that are important to folks who aren't attorneys. I'm not an attorney, but some of these topics are so interesting to everybody. It's just terrific, and I really congratulate you for that. David, tell us more about the goal that is Cardozo Society in recent years.
I think the key is evolution. I think that's the key word here for Cardozo over the years, which is that Melissa mentioned, it started off small, was social, very much Jewish attorneys amongst themselves. And I think over the years, the evolution has been quite remarkable and positive in that it is driven by Cardozo members and members of the community to do more, both fundraising, to give back, pro bono work, programming, education, do all kinds of things other than meeting for a few happy hours, get a CLE credit here and there. It's become something much more than that. And that's really driven by not just leadership of Cardozo, but the members themselves of saying, we can be doing more. And so there's been a lot of that. Melissa and I have been active together, leadership for more than 10 years with Cardozo. And even in that span, it feels like a very different organization, even in just that short span, doesn't it?
It does. And I think part of that is David and I have come up through the ranks in Cardozo and watched all of these incredible lawyers, some of whom are being honored at the dinner next week. And there is this sense of what can we continue to do in order to serve our Jewish community and the broader community. And nothing, unfortunately, highlighted the need to be organized more than October 7th. And we all know that we are better and we are stronger when we are intentional about what we are doing and when we are connected. And so that is why we have really put effort into making sure that we have an actual program here for Cardozo where we know what we want to accomplish for the year. The people who are engaged with Cardozo know and expect that they are part of an organization that has purpose, and also that we are continuing to grow and ensure the continuity of both Cardozo and of our people. So, through community organization.
There's some specific programs or activities I want to ask you about, but I want to drill down on this for just a second because I think it's really important. Both of you talked about the history of Cardozo and how it has evolved, and I sort of phrased it as meeting the needs of today. And the legal landscape, like so many other things, is very different than it was a generation or two or three ago. When lawyers first started to get together, you had Jewish firms and places where Jews couldn't practice, and the world was a much different place than it is now. We've come a long way since then, and then we had this real inflection point of October 7th, where in every aspect of the work that we do, we had to take a cold, hard look at, are we doing enough? Are we doing the right things? And how do we need to rejigger what we're doing to be as effective as we can? So I'm curious, as two highly successful, connected attorneys in town, what is it like to be practicing in this climate? And does having something like the Cardozo Society provide you something that would be missing otherwise?
It does. And I think one thing I've heard multiple conversations through both in and out of Cardozo Jewish community is that October 7th in particular, I think, brought a sort of a reckoning in a lot of different ways of identity. And what does that mean? And who am I? And where do I fit in this? And where is my voice? And where is my footing? What can I do about that? And in particular, that led to a renewed energy, especially in Cardozo, to where are we at? What are we doing? How are we showing up? How are we appearing for not just Jewish attorneys, but the community, the Jewish community? What can we do? Who are we? Where are we? And that's, we talk about some of the initiatives and things, but it's put new life and energy into that in a lot of different ways, whether it's through programming, through our outreach, law students, through our affinity bar groups, a lot of different ways. I think that sense of identity it became very stark in a lot of ways for a lot of people. That's been sort of my experience, both personally, but also in talking with a lot of Cardozo members and other attorneys.
So I practice in a predominantly Jewish sector of the law. I do complex litigation, and I have so many co-counsel who are Jewish. I have defense counsel who are Jewish. I come into contact with a lot of Jewish lawyers. So I can't say pre or post October 7th that I have felt any particular challenge in just being a Jewish lawyer practicing, generally speaking. But what I will say is having this community of lawyers who are all intentionally Jewish in their pursuit of legal justice aspect, that is. David and I don't practice in the same area, but we've talked a lot about that. Recognizing ourselves as a diverse affinity group, first and foremost, is necessary in order for others to see and appreciate us as having a diverse opinion and coming from a community that is otherwise marginalized, because it just doesn't seem like we are in our daily lives in the law that we practice. So it's an interesting kind of dichotomy where I don't feel in my daily legal practice like I am a minority, but we are a minority. And in order for others to see and experience us with a minority voice, we need to appreciate that we are. And so we have taken that, and I'll let David, who has done a lot of the work with some of our other members, kind of spearhead this. We have taken that and brought it actually to life through the Cardozo Society, so that we have that voice and we have that seat at the table, and that we don't undermine what we really are and what we're proud to be in this community. So Cardozo gives us that platform to elevate ourselves and be proud that we are an organization of Jewish lawyers. We are all lawyers in our own right, in our own day, but we are Jewish lawyers, and this gives us the ability to come together.
I just got goosebumps you phrasing it in that way, because I fall into the trap, and so many people do, and to look at everything through one particular lens. And right now, given where we are, October 7th and the rise of anti-Semitism and the state of the world, it's hard not to look at that lens. But taking the broader view as to why it's so important for people to be able to identify themselves in the way that you're talking about is incredible. And the fact that Cardozo is able to do that makes me feel really, really good. One of the things that you were alluding to, and that was my next question, so thank you for providing a beautiful segue, is the work that's being done around the judicial endorsement process and getting more members of our community to consider becoming judges. So I'm going to let you explain it, because you could do it a lot better than I, but it's one of the exciting things that you all opened up to.
Yeah, thank you. And it is one of the things that I think we're most proud of in recent years. So this is something that has been talked about for a while, but came to a head in the last couple of years for a lot of the things that we're talking about, and a question of where are all the Jewish judges? There used to be a higher number, and this coalesced, interestingly enough, from both our membership and from the bench. We had Cardozo members who said we need to do more about promoting getting Jewish attorneys to stand up, or at least educate about becoming a judge. And what does that mean? We were also contacted by the bench, by judges saying who are working on diversity initiatives, reach out to us knowing that Cardozo is the Jewish attorneys group. Can you help us understand? We feel like we've got a blind spot here in understanding, how to address this issue and how to work about it. So we put together a task force to study this, to figure out how we could do this. Other affinity groups do the same thing. And we now have a standing group that's part of Cardozo, one of our many committees that's focused just on this. And so their work and efforts are several things. One is education, right? If we are providing all of our members notices of judicial opportunities, but also as a resource, if you want to become a judge, if you're curious about what's involved, we put on programming about exactly this. And so we can help people. So there's an educational piece, but then there's also the endorsement piece, which is the formal process, which is that if someone is actually standing up and putting their name in the ring, we have a process in which people can apply. There's a vetting process to go through to say, would we endorse them? This is not a political endorsement. It's simply as on behalf of Cardozo as the Jewish attorneys group that we were endorsing this candidate for the various reasons. And so this has been something that has been a long time in the making, and we've already had several endorsements through the process that we've done, and are continuing to receive applications and continue to people who are listening who might be considering or know anybody, give them a nudge and say, contact us, and we can either provide the education or, if you're further along, the potential endorsement.
That's terrific. And as a proud student of civics who very much believes in the checks and balances of our system, it's interesting that in electoral office, not judicial, we've been very well represented in recent years in Congress, in the Senate, and even in the state houses, etc. But the number of Jewish judges has gone down dramatically. And for us to have representation and an eye on things across the board is so important. So I really applaud that. And I know there's also been work done similarly about affinity bar participation. Can one of you tell me a little bit about that too?
And so that comes out of, especially, I think, after October 7th, some of the things that Melissa was talking about, of this sense of we need to do a better job of standing up and recognizing and speaking for ourselves that we're Jewish attorneys. We are here alongside as a minority group with others, and others were quite active, lots of other affinity bar groups, and people were sort of vaguely aware there's this Jewish attorneys group, but why are they not formally recognized? Why are they not part of the cohort that are usually involved working together on things? And so we have a group that's actively working on this. We've made incredible inroads in that, in getting recognition. We're now part of and partnered with a number of the other major affinity groups, and in fact, this has led to, for the Cardozo dinner next week, we've invited the leaders from all of the other affinity groups, many of whom are attending and sitting at our tables with law firms and amongst us, and we're super appreciative of getting that invite, and now knowing and seeing Cardozo as, you are our Jewish partners for whatever initiatives and things may be coming up. Again, it's vocalizing, getting that voice, making ourselves known, seat at the table alongside our other friends and colleagues.
And we need all the friends we can get, right? So that's really tremendous.
Yeah, I think comes with being a minority group and accountability to the broader community. We want to be recognized as a minority group, then we need to be accountable to being a minority group, and we need to support our fellow affinity bar members. And Chad Blumenfeld, who is one of our members, has gotten Cardozo officially recognized as affinity group of the Minnesota State Bar Association and the Federal Bar Association. So you can actually get connected to Cardozo now through the state and federal bar associations. And that means that we are invited to their events and they are coming to our big annual dinner. And this is just building community with the broader community. So it is about connecting Jewish lawyers, but it's about showing up for our community members as well.
And now is as important as ever, if not more so, to do that. So it's very timely and I think very much appreciated. For those folks who are not currently involved with Cardozo, there's a new membership model. We're actively always inviting new people to come and participate. Can you tell me a little bit about that new membership model and what you hope to accomplish with it, as I know the plans are to grow even further?
So we are moving into a more formal membership model, which actually just suits what we have become. And we are putting a name to what we are. And I think that it is important that we are steadfast and proud of the fact that we are an organized, formal organization. We have earned the right to have a membership. We want people to join Cardozo because they want to be a part of this, not just kind of happen to be in Cardozo, but they don't really know that they're in Cardozo. Maybe they've gone to an event, but they're not sure. We want the people who are in this organization to know it, to promote it, to be proud of it. So we're moving to a model that will ask for a minimum gift and that is commensurate with all of the other kind of affinity groups in town and bar associations. Of course, there are different levels and access, just as there would be to anything else for folks who are in the public sector and law students. Like, there will never be a day that we can't have somebody in the Cardozo Society because of any sort of financial issue. This is meant to provide resources so that we can do all of the amazing work that we're doing, broadening the Cardozo Society to other, areas like judicial endorsement. This takes human power and it takes federation power. And we are also proudly an affinity group of the Jewish federations. And the work that we are doing as lawyers in this community are creating programming opportunities for ourselves and also providing resources to the federation to support, the local, national, and international communities. And that is a message that we are very committed to. We want that to be known. This is an affinity group of lawyers, and we are a part of the federations. And so we are, happy to institute a model that, one, asks people to be a part of something, and two, delivers all sorts of amazing benefits.
Thank you. That's a good pitch as far as I'm concerned. My favorite Henry Kissinger quote, it has the added benefit of being the truth. Definitely a great direction to be going in. We're almost out of time. I do want to hit on one more thing that you both mentioned, and it from slightly different angles, but I think it's very important, and that is engaging law students. We talked about younger attorneys, but can you talk a little bit about how Cardozo has really stepped up to be of service and provide something very important to those who are just learning and who have just been admitted to the bar?
And this is something that we've done, I know personally, Melissa has, and Cardozo members for a long time. And over the years, we've had all kinds of efforts and initiatives to do it because we are nothing if there's no one that's going to follow us. And what's the next generation? We've been very intentional trying to have direct outreach to get law students engaged, get them connected with this very vibrant, active, practicing community of Jewish attorneys. At the same time, it has not been an easy time to be a law student on campus with the rise of anti-Semitism and other things. So we've been focused on efforts that are twofold. One is just mentorship, getting connected, getting engaged. how to practice, how to be a lawyer. There's doing programming, trying to be there for students to get through what is a hard, trying time. And so it's both of those things that I've been focused on and working in conjunction with the Jewish law student associations that are on campus with students each day.
I was recently at the Hillel Maroon and Gold Shabbat, and while most of those students are undergraduates, they do serve graduate students from across the campus. And I can tell you that any effort that's being made by anybody to show students that they are not alone and that there are people who want to mentor them, help them, and get them integrated for flourishing careers is very much appreciated. And I really commend that effort in particular.
Right. And I would say, too, there are so many Cardozo members who would happily raise their hand, do anything to help a student get connected, do whatever it is, open doors. So that's why it's just a matter of getting us connected. There's a big wall there sometimes between students and practicing attorneys, and just trying to get those doors open any way that we can.
I mean, that is actually why David and I are sitting here today. He mentioned that he and I have been doing this in some form or fashion for the better part of 10 years. Brings us back to the earlier days in our own careers, where there were Cardozo lawyers who looked out for us and brought us into various committees in Cardozo. And so it is passing it to the next generation and, realizing that we have done this. We also have an amazing contingent of lawyers who are kind of at the end of their careers, who are looking at this, from a 360, like, how do we make sure we're looking at judge opportunities? How do we make sure that we're looking at law students? And we're trying really hard to see this full circle.
I can't think of a better way to close our conversation by having focused on what Cardozo means for Jewish continuity, for passing the torch, for ensuring that the gifts that you were given are given to the next generation. In a nutshell, that's what Jewish community is all about. That's what Federation is all about. And I thank you both tremendously for all of the effort that you put in each and every day to make that happen, not just in the context of Cardozo, which is so important and so impactful, but in general throughout our community. And Cardozo is also a testament to something that is successful on a Twin Cities level. We have here at the table, ladies and gentlemen, a chair from St. Paul and a chair from Minneapolis. And I always joke that where I come from, you have to pay a toll to cross the river. And here you don't. And this is really across the board a success story. Thank you both so much for joining me today. Until next time, I'm going to be here at the Desk of. Bye now.